What's up, you guys? This is Tim Trevathan with Tim Trevathan Homes and Keller Williams Realty, and in this video, we're gonna go over the buying power checklist. This is it, guys. This is the video that you don't wanna miss because I'm gonna go over all the solutions, or at least possible solutions, on how to get your offer accepted here in Georgia in this very, very competitive market. If you saw my last video about the Georgia real estate market being on fire, then you know that we're in an extreme seller's market. And I left the video talking about how there are some solutions to getting your offer accepted, which I shared a few, but there's so much more that I want to talk about. And in this video, this is where I'm going to share all those details. You don't want to miss it because this is going to be the make it or break it for a lot of people in getting a house. You have to have strategies in place, unlike years ago where it was simply getting an offer price that was a certain amount over asking. You'll realize quickly that there's a lot more to it than that. So without further ado, here is the buying power checklist. And I'm going to read the words here at the top. It says, when looking at the list below, you need to think about how strong of a buyer you really are. Unfortunately, when inventory levels are as low as they are now, buyers will sometimes go to extreme measures to make sure their offer gets accepted. And I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't give you the same strategies that many are taking. Most sellers are not just interested in price. They're interested in who will meet their terms and are most likely going to make it to a closing table. The more of the terms below that you can check off, the greater the buying power you have and the greater the chance a seller will accept your offer. I'm gonna run through this list, and with each one, I'm gonna give you a little bit more insight into each one. So here we go. Number one, financing, pay cash. Now, this is an obvious one. If you got the cash, pay in cash because cash is king. Those are considered the strongest offers over anything that's financed, whether it's conventional or FHA or VA. Now, the question you're probably asking me, Tim, is, Tim, I don't have that cash. Where do I get that? I understand. Again, this checklist is just trying to measure how strong of a buyer you are, this being the biggest one. But get this, if you don't have the cash, check out the second one. Become a cash buyer through Homeward, Ribbon, etc. Guys, this is a game changer. I kid you not. And surprisingly, I don't see as many offers using these programs like Homeward or Ribbon. But guess what? I have a business relationship with them, and I have buyers that are using them to get their offers accepted successfully. You don't want to overlook this valuable thing. And if you're working with somebody or have worked with somebody that didn't offer this as a possible solution, they are not working with the best strategies in mind for you. Now, I'll give you a very good example of Homeward that I used for a client. First off, they're a cash institution company with over $300 million in funds to utilize. What they do is they help people either buy with cash as their first program or buy before you sell as their second program. I had a client that was up in New Jersey last year who had their home under contract. We started looking for homes starting in January of last year. We saw about 10 to 15 homes, put in about 3 to 5 offers. All of them got rejected. And even though we claimed that we were a cash buyer because the funds of the proceeds of the sale of her home in New Jersey would go towards the purchase of the home here in Georgia, they, as in the sellers, didn't see our offer as a bona fide true cash offer. Why? Because it had a sales contingency. So how do you solve this problem? Homeward. Homeward is what allowed my buyer to get qualified through them. Homeward buys the house for them in cash as a true cash offer, and then they rent back on a prorated daily basis until they sell their home to pay them back. This is a game changer. And if you're looking to buy a home in cash doing that first program, which probably a lot of you are in that category, then this program is also a game changer because again, you're going to get a lender involved to buy a home the traditional way, but with Homeward, you're going to use their lender, but at the beginning, they're gonna help you buy in cash. Once you close on the home, then you have a loan that is financed through their mortgage company. They offer the same type of competitive rates as other programs, so don't feel reluctant to use them because you don't know of them or never heard of them. And look, I've had clients use this program and they have really loved it after they were able to close successfully on their home. The third item is get pre-underwritten. Now, some of you may or may not know, but the lender usually doesn't go through the underwriting process until you get a contract on a home. However, if you're working with the right lenders, such as the ones I have, they will pre-underwrite you before putting an offer on a house. What is good about this? Well, you know that your loan is going to get approved of before you even go under contract, which means you can waive your financing contingency, which is another item we're going to talk about in a minute. The fourth item is put as much money down as possible. Now with this one, yes, you can do as little as 3% conventional, 3.5% down payment on FHA. A lot of times I've got buyers that are doing 5% and 10% down on a conventional loan, which you still can do. But the more you put down, the higher chance your offer will get accepted, especially if you're doing 20% down or more. And the reason why is because when you're competing with multiple offers and they have, say, 5 offers on a home and all 5 offers have almost the same identical offer price, well then how does the seller pick one? Usually the next thing that they're gonna look at, or one of the next things they're gonna look at, is the down payment amount. How strong is the buyer's financials? Is their financial strength definitely overwhelming the others? Is it really standing out from the rest? That's gonna give you a good chance. The fifth one, which I already touched on a little bit, is choose conventional over FHA. Now, choosing conventional poses a lot of good benefits to you. Why? Because FHA loans are a little bit stricter when it comes to repairs. Now you have inspector required repairs and you have lender required repairs, which some may coincide with what's on the inspection report, but some may not. With a conventional loan, there are less restrictions. They're not gonna ask for as many repairs. So the seller is really going to be more apt to take on your offer as the winning offer. Another reason why a seller will choose a conventional loan over an FHA loan is that it's usually telling the seller that a conventional loan buyer is more qualified because their credit score is higher than FHA, typically 700 and above. The sixth item is use a local lender. And when I say local, I mean here in Metro Atlanta. I've had buyers that have used a lender that was out in California or in their home state if they're moving here, or just somebody that they have a relationship with or a connection to through a family member or friend. No, you wanna make sure you use a local lender who, one, can answer the phone 24/7, even on the weekends. And number two, somebody that we both can trust, and hopefully my lender, if not, at least somebody that I've heard of or know that is in the area in the same time zone. Also, this helps because the sellers know, well, hey, this person's easy to contact and I can get in contact with their lender as well if I need to ask questions. The seventh item is waiving the financing contingency. Now, just like I mentioned a second ago, if you're pre-underwritten, then you have a higher chance of being able to do this. Why is this so powerful? Well, here's why. When you put in an offer, usually you're gonna put in a financing contingency, which could be anywhere from 15 to 24 days. And with this, it protects you that if your loan got denied while you're under contract, that you can back out and get your earnest money back in full without penalty. Now that is a typical protection for the buyer that most sellers accept in previous years. But again, with this competitive market, I have seen some buyers who have waived their financing contingency and it makes them look like they're a cash offer. So it does raise your strength of your offer considerably. And last but not least in the financing category, waive the appraisal. Just like with the financing contingency, the appraisal contingency is your second other reason that you can back out of the contract and get your earnest money back in full without penalty if it's after the due diligence period. However, in this market, I'm also seeing a lot of buyers waive their appraisal contingency, and more often with this one than with the financing contingency. So what does that mean for the buyer and what risks does that pose? Well, I understand that it is a risk because if the appraised value comes in lower than the contracted purchase price, who pays that difference? Well, in past years, a lot of times the seller will lower the purchase price and reduce it to match the appraised value. The bank's not gonna loan money over their appraised value, it's gonna loan it up to that amount. So, for example, if you had a home that was priced at $500,000 and you offered $520,000 and the appraisal came back at $510,000, that means there's a $10,000 difference. Who's gonna pay that? In previous years, they would reduce it from $520,000 to $510,000. Great, you move on with the process, you get to the closing table and buy the home successfully. However, in this market, because there are buyers that are waiving it and that you have to do that too in order to get your offer accepted, you have to understand and ask yourself, do you have the funds to cover your down payment and the difference in the appraised value versus the purchase price and your closing cost, which we'll go over that in a minute. Now, for a good example, last year, 80% of my clients waived their appraisal contingency. Out of all of those that had an appraised value that came in less than the purchase price was 1. So that's good news. Only 1 out of all my clients had an appraised value that came in lower, and that amount was $16,000. It was on a townhome in Beaufort priced at $275,000. We offered $286,000. And so when we found out that it came back at $270,000 for the appraised value, that $16,000 difference my buyer had to pay in order to move forward with the buying process. Okay, let's talk about the offer category now because there's some strategies that we could do with this as well. The first one on the list is offer over the list price. Now, this is the most common one, and oftentimes it is the strongest indicator for getting an offer accepted. However, again, you want to make sure that you're not offering too much. So yes, you want to have comps, that is homes that recently sold in the neighborhood, to look at to base your offer on. But in this market, that's not good enough anymore. And so what I honestly do is that before the deadline of offers to be received, I call the listing agent and ask, how many offers do you have on the table? If it's none, then I may offer asking price. If it's 1 or 2, then I may offer $5,000 or $10,000 over asking. If it's multiple offers of 5 or 10 or more, then you could be looking at $20,000 to $50,000 over. Now, there's a lot of specificities and details and exceptions to this rule, and you cannot really just give a broad generalization, but I just tried so you can get an idea because there are other things that we're gonna talk about. The second item is cover appraisal gap, show funds. I already touched on this actually, and that is if the appraised value comes in lower than the purchase price, that you try to cover that difference. The third item is large earnest money deposit. Now with this, usually the traditional amount is 1% of the purchase price. So if you're offering on a house that's worth $400,000, then 1% of that would be $4,000, and that's your typical earnest money amount. However, in this market, again, if you want to stand out, I would say 4% is the key to getting your offer accepted. And you might say, Tim, that is a lot of money. And look, I know it is. And that's why you want to make sure you have a pre-approval letter, why you want to get pre-underwritten and already have all your docs turned in to your lender. It can't be a pre-qualification letter, which is just a verbal acknowledgement. It must be a pre-approval. If you know your financials are strong, you have 2 years of tax returns that have been strong, then go for it. Put in that large earnest money amount of 4%. If you can't, or you think it's too much of a risk, try at least 2 or 3%, but 4% will really do it. The fifth item for the offer category is inspection for information purposes only, and I'm going to cover the sixth category, inspection for health and safety related items. Okay, so it's going to sound crazy, but I've had 1 or 2 buyers that had to waive their due diligence period. What is a due diligence period? It is a time where you can inspect the home with a certified licensed inspector in Georgia. Well, here's the thing. If you're going to waive it, then that means you're gonna say to the seller, look, I'm willing to take on all the repairs with my own money. I'm gonna pay for it and it's gonna be post-closing. Now, here's the thing. If you do an inspection, you can still ask for due diligence period of say 5 or 6 days, not more than 7, I would say in this market. But in doing so, you can also specify to say, hey, look, I'm gonna do it just for information purposes. So if I get the report back, I get it for just keepsake so that I can look over for what I need to do after closing, but I'm not gonna make the seller pay for the repairs. I'm not gonna ask anything. I'm not gonna try to negotiate on that. So I'm telling them up front as I'm putting the offer in. That way you can still do the inspection, but then they know that you're not gonna ask them for repairs. Or you could also say, hey, I'll do the inspection and I'm only gonna ask for items that are safety hazards like radon gas or a water leak or black mold, something like that. Then they know, well, they're not gonna ask and nitpick for other things like a broken door handle or some trim that needs to be painted again because it's been rubbed off. Okay, the 7th thing on this offer category is shortened timelines. Now that's timelines with 2 things in regards to the response time of your offer for the seller to get back to you, to tell you if they've accepted, rejected, or countered your offer, and also your timeline as far as a closing date, okay? Earlier closing, the better. It depends on the seller. They may need to sell their house, so they may actually want you to lease it back to them or to offer a 45 or 60-day closing. But for the most part, less than 30 days is ideal. 30 days is typical, but if you can do less, like 25 days, that can really help your offer stand out. And with the time of response from the seller to get back to you on your offer, with that, usually I do 24 hours. And sometimes you might not get an answer back for 2 or 3 days because they want more offers to trickle in over the weekend and then they make a decision. Well, in that case, you can handle that with the agent after you submitted the offer. The next to last item is offer option money. Now, option money is a very interesting thing. It's actually found on page 1 of the purchase and sale agreement, but many times, I'd say 99% of the time, most agents don't use it and a lot of agents don't even know about it. Okay, now option money is a sum of money, whether it be $300, $500, $1,000, $2,000, you name it, is an amount that you're telling the seller, here's money on the table, I'm giving it to you, non-refundable, along with my offer, and you can keep it whether you accept my offer or not. Now, this is probably the biggest risk I've seen. I knew of an agent in my company that said they did this and they were able to get their offer accepted. I have not used it with any of my offers yet, but I have been open to it if it makes sense and if my buyer is willing to do it. Last but not least for the offer category is use an escalation clause. This is a big one. If there's anything that you are trying to take away from this video, this is it. This and Homeward are the 2 biggest game changers for my offers. With an escalation clause, what that means is, let's say the offer price or the asking price of the home is $500,000. You can offer $500,000, but with an escalation clause that goes up to $550,000. So what does that mean? What that means is that if another offer comes in at say $525,000, then your offer automatically jumps up to $525,500 or whatever amount that you put in the stipulation, whether it's 500 or 1,000. The key is that your offer jumps up automatically above the highest offer with a cap of $550,000, which means it will protect you so that there's a crazy offer that comes in at $600,000 that you're not going to automatically jump up to $600,500. So it gives you this cap where you know where your limit is, and at the same time, you're not offering too much where the second offer comes in way below and you wish that you had offered less. So by offering the asking price of $500,000 with an escalation of $550,000, that really gets you in a good place to get your offer accepted. Case in point, had a townhome in Alpharetta. They had 22 offers, including mine. We got ours accepted. Guess what? We had an escalation clause. Guys, I hope you like this. I know there's more, but I'm gonna cover that in part 2 because it was so long to cover all this information, but this is the bulk of all that you can expect to put in an offer to make it the most competitive, and to help you know that where you lie in as far as the strength of your offer and the strength of who you are as a buyer. You have to have the mindset that I'm willing to do these things. If you aren't check marking these boxes, then I would have to say, quite frankly, you shouldn't be in the market to buy a house. Save yourself the time and the stress when it comes to trying to buy a house here in Georgia. Next one, part 2, you're gonna see me talk about the other categories on the right side of this screenshot. So don't miss out. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel because I cover all sorts of material in the real estate market locally and in helping buyers and sellers from all over the country and the world come here to make their home. See you on the next video.